Township of Union Board of Education regular meeting agenda for July 19th. Mrs. Cappiello, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brins Watson. Dr. Francis.
Present.
Ms. McKenzie.
Here.
Mrs. Manisi. Here. Mr. O'Shea.
Maybe, yeah.
Mrs. Regis Darby. Ms. Santana. Mrs. Scott Hayden.
Present.
Mrs. Williams.
Here. Mrs. Scott Hayden, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Can everyone please stand for the flag salute?
Mrs. Cohn, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act statement, please?
Here we go. Good evening. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meeting of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Union Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof published in the Star Ledger of the Union County Local Sources, posted in the Administrative Building of 2369 Morris Avenue, Union, New Jersey, filed with the Township Clerk, and mailed to all persons, if any, who had requested said notice. During the course of the board meeting, the Board of Education offers members of the public an opportunity to address issues regarding the Union Public Schools. The board reminds those individuals to identify themselves by names and address. The first public comment period is for items on the agenda. The second public comment can be on any issue. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes respectfully. Issues raised by the members of the public may or may not be responded to by the board. All comments will be considered and a response will be forthcoming if and when appropriate. The board asks all members of the public to be courteous and mindful of the rights of all other individuals when speaking. Comments regarding students and employees of the board will not be responded to by the board. Madam President.
Thank you, Mrs. Coon. Mrs. Scott Hayden, would you please read our mission statement?
The mission of the Township of Union Public Schools is to build on the foundations of honesty, excellence, integrity, strong family, and community partnerships. We promote a supportive learning environment where every student is challenged, inspired, empowered, and respected as diverse learners. Through cultivation of students' intellectual curiosity, skills, and knowledge, our students can achieve academically and socially and contribute as responsible and productive citizens of our global community.
Thank you very much. At this time, the board needs to go into executive session, so I'm making a motion that we go into executive session. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay.
Madam President, can we just state that the purpose is to discuss matters of personnel, attorney-client privilege, and pending litigation?
Yes.
And that action will be taken by the board in the closed session.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Cappiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis.
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie.
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi.
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea.
Yes. Excuse me, yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby. Mrs. Regis Darby.
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Hayden.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes. Is that meeting open? Mr. O'Shea is. However, probably everybody knows that we had a tragedy in our district. We lost Matthew Becerra, And at this time, before the public makes their comments, I'd like to do a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you. At this time, we will have comments from the public on resolutions that we will be voting on this evening. So if you would, line up here. We're going to go back and forth between whoever's on Zoom and wishes to speak and the audience here. So if you'd like to speak on the resolutions that are on the agenda tonight, I just ask that you line up. And then we'll just alternate between the audience here and the Zoom audience. No one would like to speak. Okay. So, Ms. Cappiello, can we have the approval of the minutes, please?
I need a motion.
May I have a motion, please?
May I make the motion to accept the minutes?
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Manisi, seconded by Dr. Francis. Mrs. Cappiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea? Mrs. Regis Darby? Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. We've got our requests and our retirements, resignations. Going through that, we will be addressing those in person now. And that moves us to the superintendent's report.
Am I on?
You are. Did you need me to come with you? Or?
Yeah, come on, you might as well come with me. Thanks. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So it's my pleasure to welcome our board president with me to the front so that we can say a few words about the support professionals of the year who are being honored tonight. We didn't have a chance to do that in June, and which is when we honored the teachers, counselors who were recognized. We're fortunate to have, thank you, 2 who are with us tonight. I'm going to ask them to come up in just a minute. Before I do that, I'd like to announce all the names of the support professionals who were honored. And just for clarification, support professionals are those who are helping keep the buildings running, going, the teachers, the kids, engaged and happy, paraprofessionals, teacher assistants, secretaries, custodial staff, security guards. Without them, nothing's going to happen. I mean, things will not move forward unless we have strong support professionals. So these are very important people. So I'm going to read the names of the individuals who we're recognizing, and then I'm going to call up the 2 who are actually here. So from Battle Hill, Colleen Noonan, who's been here for 21 years, is recognized as one of our support professionals of the year. At Burnett, Sharon Holmes, she's been here for 14 years. Connecticut Farms, Marianne Purcell, she's a preschool paraprofessional in our preschool disabled program. She's been here for 27 years. At Franklin, Raven Aponte, she's relatively new. She's been here for 4 years, and she is a preschool paraprofessional as well. At Hamilton, Kathy Gilmartin, who has been with us for 21 years. She's one of our secretaries. She's a 12-month secretary, so she's here over the summer. And at Jefferson, Nicole Signorelli, who's been here for 12 years, is being recognized as a support professional of the year. At Kiwami, Elizabeth Krako, who's been here for 5 years, is being recognized. Gwen Johnson, who is a secretary for the Counseling Services Department. She's also a 12-month secretary. She's been here for 12 years. She's being recognized. And finally, before I get to the 2 honorees who were here with us, at Washington, Sandra Delisante, who's been here for 22 years. And by the way, that includes her time as a lunch aide, which speaks volumes about how we try hard to take care of our own. Once you're with us, we try to support you and foster growth, and then grow into the position. Oh no, I'm going back to them. Yeah, because they're the special ones who actually came, so thank you. So with that, at Hannah, I'd like to welcome Sandra Marquis Albando. Come on up. She's been here for 6 years. She's one of our preschool disabled paraprofessionals. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Here's a gift from us.
Thank you
And
very
just stay with us because we want to take a group photo. Yes, so come.
Yes.
And from Livingston, somebody who I've gotten to know very well because she's also, she works with the Teachers Association, Support Professionals Association. So you're actually one of the first individuals I think I met when I got to the district. Lynn Cornacchio, who's been here for 18 years, is a preschool disabled paraprofessional as well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So with that, how about we take a group photo so we can blast it out on social media? Oh, all right, you're off the hook, Dr. Perez. So let's all get together. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey, Lynn, don't go. Come on. Give you a hug.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay, or you can head out if you like. It's up to you. I am going to switch gears and now give you a State of the Schools presentation. Some of my colleagues will be joining me. Just give me 1 second to set things up. The host for the Zoom room has disabled me from screen sharing. Can you make me a host? Okay. All righty. So tonight I have some important information to share with you about the high school, about the work we're doing to meeting the goals listed in the strategic plan. That's the point at which I'm going to invite Mr. Benaquista, Dr. Perez, Dr. Cohen, and Ms. Hutchinson to the front. But first of all, let me talk about the high school. I promised the community and the board that we would be addressing the problems we identified at the high school, in particular last year. Spent my year learning about the needs, and what I've come up with is a five-prong plan to address the needs at the high school, particularly in the area of safety and security. The first thing I want everybody to know, which is really the first prong, first way we're going to stabilize the culture and climate at the high school, is to bring in a complete, solid team of vice principals and principals. So tonight I'm recommending to the board several individuals to fill the vacancies at the vice principal level and an interim principal at the school for the year. So that means we will have in place by September 1 at the latest a full team of 4 vice principals and 1 interim principal. The second prong of the plan has us doing something that we have done in the past, but we certainly need to do sooner than later, and that is require all residents who are sending children to the high school in particular to re-register their children in the school. This will take place first on August 1. For 3 weeks, everyone will have an opportunity to upload documents as part of the re-registration process to Genesis. We will then, starting the last week of August, make available in-person re-registration. As many people know, part of the issue we had at the high school regarding safety and security was having individuals, students in the building who were not residents of the school, who unfortunately also happened to have been primary instigators of some of the fights that we had, some of the large-scale fights in particular. The third prong to the plan to stabilize the culture and the climate at the high school is to bring back the extended day program. Mr. Benaquista, I understand, is one of the creators of this program back in the day, and so he's been charged with bringing it back by September 1. So we will be posting for positions to fill the extended day program so that we can be up and running by September. I'm not going to get into too much detail about what the EDP is, but in a nutshell, it will be a 3 to 4 hour program after the school day, possibly off-site, not at the high school, but in a different facility, to allow students who don't fit the mold of the traditional setting, they've exhibited certain behavioral problems or have become completely disaffected, to take an alternative route of sorts to getting a high school diploma. Now, the EDP, we'll get into more detail in August, will not be locking kids in for a full year. There'll be an opportunity for students to start spend a marking period, 2 marking periods, and then grow through and out of the program. But the intent is to get that going in September. And the reason why it's so important to do that is because thanks to the board for its support and actually its idea, a lot of the idea here about policy came out of the board, and their support. We are recommending updates to the policy on code of conduct and student behavior. Tonight will be the first reading. The second reading, which you must have if you're going to put a policy in place. If it's updated, it will be in August. And one of the main tenets of the policy is what I'm calling a 2 strikes to EDP protocol, which would have students who exhibit violent behaviors 2 times be directed to take the part in the extended day program, because we, at that point, would have acknowledged that they're just not fitting into the regular program. So let me make it really clear. We're not putting students out on the curb. We're not in the business of not servicing or providing students help. What we'd actually be doing is be providing them different kinds of help and support in smaller groups, because the EDP will probably be no more than 20 to 30 students in a group. Counseling support, there will be at least 1 counselor in the EDP, provide that therapeutic support. And then close attention in the academic world when having, in that small group setting, when having teachers who are purposed to just give them that individualized attention. And the final prong, which has already begun to see the light of day, is to have a security consultant come in, funded by the township, to inventory all of our safety and security protocols, documents that we're using that guide us to responding to crises, as well as actual facility needs. And so what we're going to do with the report we get in August is put in place immediate steps we have to take according to the security firm's recommendations to open up in September safely and securely. We'll get a full report in September, which will then allow us to consider how we might be able to use operational budget, state and federal grant money to make whatever changes we don't need to make right away, but down the road. So that's the 5-prong plan for addressing the needs at the high school. I'll report again on how we're working through high school culture and climate rebuilding in August. I'm going to switch gears, and the second half of my State of the Schools presentation now is about the progress we're making towards addressing the goals in the strategic plan. Reminder, we had 79 stakeholders help develop the plan. The plan has 4 goals, and across 3 years, 76 action steps across 3 years. One of the most important goals, which is why it's the first slide I have up here, is fostering equity. And I must tell you that as of even recently as today, the work we're doing on moving towards giving kids more access, uncovering implicit bias, and recognizing how that works its way into microaggressions is happening right now. In fact, it started happening 3 weeks ago when the leadership team met during its retreat with Elizabeth Riley Williams, one of the consultants I'm going to introduce here, and had us deep diving into some difficult conversations about privilege and about bias. So this is a shot of the meeting that Dr. Perez put together today of all the consultants, including, by the way, consultants not focusing on equity. Dr. Perez brought, I think it was 8 different people who were helping us in all kinds of areas together, and gave them a chance to meet each other and get to talk about what they're going to be doing for the district, so there's some kind of cooperation and synergy there. First time I've ever in my 30 years experienced a meeting like this where we brought every different individual supporting us together. Then towards the second half of the meeting, Dr. Perez and I stayed behind, and Mr. Benaquista as well, to meet with just the consultants helping us in the area of equity. And they are Dr. Edward Fergus, who I identified there in my picture. Eddie, as he likes to be called, was a university professor at Temple. He's now moving to Rutgers. I think that's public information because he shared it with us. He'll be at Rutgers Newark. He's going to be responsible for collecting data and analyzing that data, surveying the community on their feelings about equity, looking at access to honors and AP courses, and then reporting back all that data to us and the consultants so they can use it in an actionable way in the schools. Samantha Pugh is the individual in the middle. She'll be working with school staff and faculty as early as September on a regular basis. By the way, financially, we'll be funding most of this work through Title I federal grant funds. And Elizabeth Riley Williams, who I just mentioned a few minutes ago, will continue working with the leadership team. So rather than have one person focus all his or her attention on addressing the problems we have with equity and racism, we're going to be addressing the needs of the different groups, leadership team, schools, and then the behind-the-scenes work and data with different specialists. Now, we're going to be meeting with these folks on a regular basis, so they're talking to each other. So it's not like Elizabeth is going to be telling the leadership team one thing, and then Samantha's going to be telling teachers and support staff another. This is just a quick video to show you what it looked like. We were all gathered in my office. We actually Zoomed in with some people. That's Dr. Ferguson.
To focus a lot of my work.
Before I pass the baton to my colleagues in the curriculum world, I just want to recap that what we've been doing in the area of social emotional well-being. As I promised, I'm highlighting you in my picture. We sent numbers of teachers to workshops in the state, as far as South River, locally, Highland Park, to learn more about responsive classroom, which, if you look in the strategic plan, is one of the things we want to do district-wide. So I'm very pleased to hear from all the individuals who went out to learn more about responsive classroom, which, by the way, is a strategy to help kids build interpersonal skills, self-regulate their behaviors, build confidence. It was extremely well received. So the idea here is, rather than me coming in like gangbusters and just top-down saying everybody's doing a responsive classroom, we're going to try to build a positive mass. So the people in each of the schools who've already been going, they're going to start it up, they're going to pilot it, they're going to invite their colleagues in, and I imagine there'll be the excitement, the enthusiasm I'm already seeing will spread so that by 2023, 2024, we will say, okay, we're doing this now district-wide in all of our elementary schools. It's a K-5 strategy. Okay, so with that, let me have Dr. Perez, Dr. Cohen, and Ms. Hutchinson come on up front. I'm going to give you guys the hand mic. They're going to update you on the progress we're making towards addressing the first goal. Is this on? Okay, so I will give this to you. Dr. Perez is going to say a few words first.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is the point.
So good evening, everyone. Much as you've been accustomed to seeing me present, one of the ideas that we had for tonight was to have our directors of curriculum and instruction for STEM and humanities speak more specifically through to the three goals that we have for CNI and give you a little bit more insight as to what it is that we're focusing on and why and how all this work came about. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Randy Hutchinson, who is the director of CNI for STEM, and Dr. Jeremy Cohen, who is the director, you're the director of CNI for humanities, and Dr. Jeremy Cohen, who is the director of CNI for STEM.
It's not the first time we've been confused.
Sorry.
Thank you for having us tonight, Dr. Perez, Dr. Taylor, the board, and the community. We appreciate you providing the opportunity for this platform for us to talk about important work to us, important work to our community, and the goals that we'll be focusing on over the next 3 years. Before we talk specifically about those goals, it's important for us to tell you about how we derive these goals. You might see on the screen an hourglass. Typically, what happens in an hourglass is it starts out very wide at the top, it narrows to this inflection point, and then it widens on the bottom. It's the same structure a research paper tends to take, or research tends to take. Typically, you might have an idea in mind with what you want to focus on, but that's not where you start with your research. You cast this wide net out into the community, looking at the research that's being said about your specific topic. As you do that, you become more of an expert at your topic, and it narrows and sharpens your understanding to this inflection point. Then you begin looking at your topic, and at the end, there's this widening, there's this reporting out of your research, generalizing to the community. This is the same exact process that our team engaged in to determine the goals of the Curriculum and Instruction Department. Before I pass the mic over to Ms. Hutchinson to talk about these goals, I want to focus on the bottom half of that image, this sharing out. In a research paper, what happens is you share out at the end. You publish something, you write something in an article. As Ms. Hutchinson and I and Dr. Perez talked about this, it was important for us not to share this out at the end. It was important for us to share this out along the way, before this takes place, during and after. And that way, the community has an idea of what's happening in real time and can provide feedback to us. So without further ado, Ms. Hutchinson will talk about the goals.
As Dr. Cohen mentioned, this was the process that we undertook to make sure that we were selecting goals and identifying goals that were really meaningful to our schools. And as he mentioned, we cast that broad net, and we looked at a needs assessment that our district administrators completed. We looked at what other districts were doing in curriculum instruction. We looked at research that is currently being published and recent in the field of education. We looked at our current programs and our past programs and what has worked and not worked. And we looked at the community feedback that was garnered through the work with Dr. Taylor on the strategic plan. And through that work, we started to find that there were 3 themes that kept emerging. And that we knew was the directions that we need to go in to really focus our work. So those 3 themes started to develop, and they were this need for a curriculum that focuses on standards for our students, clear learning paths, and clear assessments for mastery. The second theme that started to come out was the need for a district-wide and systematic approach to meeting the needs of all of our students. And the third was the need for an analysis and reflection on our district systems and our curriculum and our programs to make sure that there is equitable access and that the representation of our school community is present in our curriculum and our programs.
And so for our final slide, we thought we'd take a moment to tease out some of these goals, but also to provide you some look-fors, what you should expect to see over this next year that will show you we're progressing towards each of these goals. Goal number 1 that Ms. Hutchinson mentioned was about rewriting curriculum. Typically what happens in New Jersey is the state puts out standards. It's up to the individual district. We're tasked with building out a curriculum that aligns to those standards. We've adopted the Connected Action Roadmap, or CAR, as a process by which we'll be engaging in this work. Essentially, what CAR does is it takes a standard, breaks it into smaller chunks called student learning objectives, develops mastery. What should students be able to do? What should students be able to answer if they've mastered this student learning objective? And then it develops a clear instructional path towards that mastery. We'll be engaging in that process in all of our curricular areas over the next couple years, but specifically this upcoming year in mathematics, social studies, English language arts, world language, and PE health. So what should you expect to see over this next year? You should expect to see curriculum being rewritten in this format and template, and the beginning of the development of common assessments, that common mastery.
The second goal really focuses on that systematic approach to supporting our students. So the other thing that we're going to be taking on is the New Jersey tiered systems of support. That's a systematic process that a district can adopt that helps make sure that the academic, behavioral, mental health, SEL needs of all of the students are being met. Not just the students who need support because they're struggling, but also the students who need enrichment, the students who need all different kinds of assistance. This will create more consistency across our schools. While the programs might differ because of the student population, there'll be some consistency in how those things are developed. So what can you look for? You can look for a creation of a district NJTSS handbook, which will be the guide for our work. and the development of data teams at each of the buildings. Those data teams will look at different student data, not just achievement data, but also attendance data, all different kinds of data that we can gather about our students to help better identify the students who need help earlier on. The third goal has to do with equity, particularly in curriculum instruction and assessment. We can have great curriculum and we can have great programs, but if our students don't have access to that curriculum or programs and they don't feel represented in those curriculum and programs, we're not going to make meaningful progress. So what we're going to be working on over the next 3 years is working with Dr. Fergus, as Dr. Taylor mentioned, to do a needs assessment throughout the district, to develop committees that are program specific that are going to look at access to those programs and also who's represented in those programs, informal and formal training for staff on culturally responsive teaching practices, and also the work of the Grading for Equity Committee, who has been tasked with analyzing our district grading policies to make sure that they're equitable for all students.
Thank you. We appreciate the time.
Testing. I just have a couple of more things I'd like to share. You know, when I put these presentations together, I'm thinking, hey, what does the community really want to know? Like, what are they desperate to know? Obviously, the high school is a biggie, but I'm sure you're wondering how we're making out in terms of hiring. So I am inviting Mr. Benequista, who's in charge of personnel, to update you on how much progress we've made. And I got to preface by saying I'm extremely proud of the supervisors, directors, assistant soups. We've been working pretty hard to fill these numbers. You want me to start?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. And Dr. Taylor didn't mention himself because any of the candidates we hired have to come through Dr. Taylor to be recommended to the board. And this year is one of the highest number that we needed in a long time, maybe in all my years at central office. It was approximately 91 positions that we needed, certified positions. And some of them included director of athletics, principal, facilities manager of buildings and grounds, social studies, vice principal, director of instruction, funded programs, special education, dean of restorative practices, athletic training, school counseling, elementary, physical ed, art, music, science, math, English, chemistry, nurses, dance, media specialists, LDTC, school psychologists, secretaries. So almost every position in our district, we had openings. So it was a definitely, and this is starting in probably April to the current. Up until next month's meeting, we're assuming that who Dr. Taylor met with, that will be on in August, is not vacant. We'll still have 25 vacancies, actually 26. We had a resignation today. Plus we have 2 or 3 leave replacements that we have to fill. But areas that those vacancies will be in, we have 2 Spanish, an art, 3 secretary positions, financial literacy, media specialist, middle school math, nurse, pre-K teachers, physics teacher, 8 special ed teachers district-wide, chemistry teacher, 11-month principal, high school social studies, high school math, and a school psychologist. And hopefully we won't get any more resignations before the year starts, but one did happen today. So, you know, it was a great accomplishment, and it was definitely a team effort. The administrators, the committees, we had more committees than we had in the past, especially at the end of the year and even over the summer, the start of the summer. So really it's a thank you to the district, all our personnel that was involved in it, because it wouldn't have happened without everyone. But thank you, Dr. Taylor.
And as Mr. Benequista mentioned, we have 25 positions open. We hope to fill as many of those between now and August as possible. So consider that there are about 1,200 employees in this school district. That's a pretty remarkable number of vacancies left, remarkably low relative to the number of employees we have. Since I interview all of the final round candidates for certificated positions, I have, my anecdotal evidence at least, I've found that we have done a really good job of attracting and hiring a very diverse group of teachers and leaders. And I hope by September, October, I can report hard data to the board and the community on the numbers of minority educators, white educators who we've hired. So with that, the last thing I want to share with the board and the community before I sit down is what I'm obligated to do, and that's share with everyone the data related to harassment, intimidation, and bullying incidences for the second period. So that's January to June. I reported on the first period. In January, I'm now reporting on the second period. So what you're seeing basically is that we had a total of 46 cases in the district between the months of January and June. Of those, 28 were found and 18 were not. And I'll continue to report this data to the board on a biannual basis. Okay. Are there any questions? And if there are, and I can't answer them, then I'll invite Dr. Perez to answer if she can, if it's curriculum related. So I'm going to open up for questions.
Ms.
Nelson?
I have a question. I know about 3 months ago, the board hired a company to do re-registration and lease in the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and then at the end of the year. So why is it that we're having parents come in August to do re-registration when we're paying? We hired a company, if I'm clear. I believe the board voted to hire a re-registration company where they can check to see if the students are
That's a good
here.
question.
So why are we doing this?
Do you want to answer? Thanks, Mr. Benecosta.
Well, I was just going to say that is accurate. It's for residency, to use to check residency. You know, it's something we could talk about if you feel that's sufficient. We are doing batch runs.
My concern is I'm not confident that we're going to have, we just purchased this package. It's just being rolled out to us. I'm not confident it'll be up and running in the summer in time for the September school year. Now, could that program keep us from having to go through the re-registration process for middle school and elementary school and then December and so on? Maybe. But I'm not confident that we can rely on that right now.
And I
because
also
it just hasn't been tested.
think it's more data. If you have students registered with you, that we get information that they don't live here.
So then,
It has, during the end of this year, since we've had it, confirmed some cases.
Just be mindful, it hasn't been implemented yet.
okay. But realistically, we can have until October to kind of run that beginning of the year data on
Certainly.
our students. So I don't see, I mean, we purchased this thing about 3 months ago. You know, we knew that we were having a school year starting 3 months later. So I just don't see the rationale for having us paying so much money to do this and then having parents come and stand on the line in the middle of August when parents are on vacation and things are happening within the community to have them do this. I am a supporter of re-registration. Let me just make this clear to the community. I think all kids should be registered. We need our kids to go within our district. But we specifically purchased a program to do this job.
And-
Why are we doing, having parents?
And that program will certainly be put into practice when we're ready to roll it out. I'm just not willing to risk trying something brand new on something so important. My mission is to open up the high school solid, and that means I've got to do, by the way, the re-registration process, that's so be it in August. But by the way, I seem to point out before I give it up that we are not requiring people to come in person. They can upload documents from the comfort of their home, vacation home, beach, wherever they are. They just have to be able to get in there. We're just going to make the option for in-person available.
That's what I was going to say, that you did say the first 3 weeks where they would have to upload onto Genesis, so they don't have to leave their home. For those who, for whatever reason, need to come in person, then they have that option.
Right.
And it was, the way it was presented during the meeting, or the way I interpreted it, is that CLEAR would be responsible for finding children that don't belong in the district, and that the re-registration process would prevent kids that don't belong here from getting in the first place.
That's a good point. I mean, it is like reacting versus being proactive. What I'm trying to do for us is be proactive. But I certainly understand your point, and there's no saying we can't actually use CLEAR to replace the re-registration process, but we're just not ready to do that right now. Are there any other questions?
Mrs.
Please.
Regis Darby.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to the Dr. Cohen and Mrs. Hutchinson for presenting, because again, not only did they touch on RTI, but they stress MTSS, which I think is a really, really important thing, because not only does he address RTI in terms of level 1, level 2, and 3, but it addresses the SEL component, it addresses social emotion, and it addresses behavior and attendance. So thank you to them for kind of presenting that through the strategic plan. And also, if they can just include, I heard them say that they're gonna look at data in terms of building-wise. My suggestion is just to look at it both horizontal and vertically at the same time, because then it makes sense.
Okay. Other questions? Then, Madam President, thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. We're moving to our Education Student Discipline Committee resolutions. Ms. Scott Hayden, would you do the honors, please?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of the schools, the Education Student Discipline Committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. E1, Superintendent's Report of HIB for the period of June 22nd, 2022 to July 19th, 2022. E1A, affirm the superintendent's determination of HIB for the periods of June 14th, 2022 to June 21st, 2022. E2 is approved student safety data system report. We're going to accept the student data system safety report, formerly as the vandalism and violence report for the period 2 of 2021 through 2022 school year. E3, approve the June report for the NJDOE HIB. E4, approve an increase in curriculum writer stipend rate. E5 is to approve a settlement agreement, docket number EDS 7232-21. E6, approve a settlement agreement, docket number 02682-22.
Okay. It's been moved by Ms. Scott Hayden. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Manisi. Any discussion? Go ahead.
E4, and I always have this question to the board every time I see this on the agenda, in terms of approving the curriculum writers. And according to Dr. Cohen and Mrs. Hutchinson, who just presented, the district already have curriculum. So why is it that we are approving curriculum writers instead of curriculum map writers? Because there's a difference between a curriculum writer and someone who's making adjustment to the curriculum that have to legally be given to teachers. So why is it that we're approving curriculum writers? Because to be a curriculum writer, you have to be a curriculum writer. To make adjustment to curriculum is you're giving me my curriculum and I'm making adjustment to my standards, I'm making adjustment to my learning intentions. So why is it that we are approving curriculum writers?
Dr. Perez, would you mind answering that question? Just make sure you turn your mic on. Press the button in the front.
We're approving the rate change from going what it originally was to now increasing the amount. Now, as far as curricular writers, the way the district has done it, and my experience with other districts, it is the district employees, mainly the certificated staff, who write the curriculum. If it's an existing curriculum, they make revisions to it so that it aligns to what the state mandates are. And if it's a new course, then we would obviously write new curriculum. And this is where the CAR comes into place and the training comes into place, so to ensure that they're following not just a model, but that they understand how to break down those particular those standards into objectives.
So they're making adjustment to curriculum.
They're making revisions to the curriculum.
So they're not curriculum writers. They're just making adjustments to
Well,
given
we do have
curriculum.
certain courses that are going to be new, and they're going to be writing curricula for that.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Capiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes on everything except E4.
Abstain or no?
No.
Mrs. Scott Hayden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. Excuse me. We move us to the Fiscal and Planning Committee resolutions. Mr. O'Shea, please.
Yes, Madam President. Going through the list, let's start off with F1, which is the Treasury report. Basically, that's the funds that we have that is needed to run the district. F2 is the secretary's report, that is the monthly payments that have to be made. And F3 is the certification of both that has to be sent to the county by Ms. Coons. F4 is the appropriation of transfers. F5 is the a list of contracts and purchase orders for the month. F6 is the approval of district-wide travel and related expenses. F7 is the approval of the list of contracts and purchase orders within the student activity account. F8 is the approved list of the 2022-2023 state contract vendors list. F9 is the accepted donations from the company Shutterfly LLC to Livingston Elementary School and to Hannah Colwell Elementary School. F10 is the approval of the 2022-2023 out-of-district student placement list. If I'm correct, that's just up a little bit this month at a 157, am I correct? Thank you. F11 is the approval of fundraisers in accordance with the handouts to the board. F12 is the approval of the parent or public transportation contracts for the special education students attending the NJEDDA High School at a rate of $47.62 per day, not to exceed $10,000 for the 2022-2023 school year. F13 is to approve the parent or public transportation contract for a special ed student attending Shepherd School at a rate of $40.01 per day, not to exceed $8,402 for the 2022-2023 school year. 14 is the approved submission of the state fiscal year 2023 IDB grant application. F15 is the approval of the acceptance of the same IDB grant. 16 is the approved agreement for non-public chapters 192 to 193 services, UCESC. F17 is the approval agreement of non-public equitable IDEA services based on the UCESC. F18 is the approval of agreement of non-public chapter nursing services under the UCESC. 19 is the approved agreement of non-public security and programs under the UCESC. 20 is the approval of the agreement for non-public textbook under the UCESC. 21 is the approval and agreement of non-public technology initiative programs under the UCESC. 22 is the approval of agreement for professional services under the UCESC. F23 is the approval of High School Senior Scholarship Award, Margaret. I hope I'm saying that right. F24 is the approval of voided checks for all accounts for the 2021-2022 year in accordance with the handouts. F25 is the approval of Great Beginnings evaluations for the following evaluations. There are a list of them and their appropriate dollar figure. F26 is the Christopher Johnny large print technology evaluations at a rate of $400 per hour, not to exceed $4,800 for the school year. F27 is to approve Dr. Lice Odeski for neuropsychological evaluations for the 2022 school year, not to exceed $4,000. F28 is the attendance at transition meetings for Sarah McCullough and Louis at various locations for the 2022 school year. F29 is the approved acceptance of the IDA project and participation. F30 is the approved amendment and agreement to the ESS LLC. And F21 is the list of legal services that is voted on tonight that is
Moved by Mr. O'Shea. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Moved by Mr. O'Shea, seconded by Mrs. Manisi. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Cappiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea? Mr. O'Shea? Mrs. Regis Darby? Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. We are moving to our grievance negotiation committee resolutions. Ms. McKenzie, please.
Upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Grievance Negotiations Committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. G1, approve memorandum of understanding between the Association of Custodial Maintenance and Transportation Employees in the Township of Union Board of Education for the contract term of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2026. G2, approve collective bargaining agreement between the Township of Union Board of Education and the Township of Union Association of School Administrators for the contract term of September 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024.
Moved by Ms. McKenzie. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Scott Hayden. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mrs. Cappiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Abstain.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes to G1, abstain from G2.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby? Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. We move to our operation committee resolutions. Ms. Manisi, huh? Did she?
Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the operation committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. 01, approve security drills, bus evacuation reports. 02, approve school security drill, statement of assurance. 03, approve agreement with Boys and Girls Club of Union County. That's for this winter swim team. And then we have one discussion item, request from United Clergy, Jefferson School parking lot. We all read it in our attachments.
Is there any discussion on that?
Do we second first, Mr. Taylor? Or do we have discussion on the discussion item? I'm sorry, we're
The
on
discussion item.
operations, so do we second and then do the discussion?
Read first, and then do discussion item second.
Okay.
So it's moved by Mrs. Manisi. Can I have
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McKenzie. Any discussion? Mrs. Cappiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby? Mrs.
For
Regis Darby?
operations.
Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. You can do your discussion. item.
Okay, so we have this discussion item. We always allow our community to use the parking lots or buildings, so we all got the letter and saw. The only question I have, and I guess that's for Mrs. Kuhn, I saw in the letter of communication, it said something about providing maybe a podium. I just want to make sure that if that's a request that we do that, or could the town provide that? Because they're only going to use the parking lot.
We'll look into that.
Okay, all right. So, turn it over to you, see if there's any discussion.
Any discussion? Okay, so you're moving a resolution that we provide the United Clergy the use of Jefferson School parking lot on Friday evening in late August or early September in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member.
Yes.
May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Scott Hayden, sorry about that. No discussion. Roll call, please, Mrs. Cappiello?
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby? Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. We move to our Personnel Committee resolutions. Ms. McKenzie, please.
Okay. At the superintendent's recommendation, we will be pulling from the personnel agenda tonight, P1A-32 and P1E.
Not the entire P1A,
I'm sorry?
not the name on P1A.
L. Campos on P1A.
Correct.
Ms. McKinney, can you repeat it again?
Yes. So at the superintendent's recommendation, we will be pulling from the personnel agenda tonight, P1A-32 and P1E, L. Campos.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by, what? Ms. Scott Hayden. Any discussion? We can't have discussion. Yeah. Mrs. Capiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
This is just to pull it.
Yeah, this is the bullet.
I mean, if it's being pulled by the superintendent, you don't have to vote to pull.
I didn't think
We
so.
don't?
Yeah, you don't have to vote to pull.
I
If
didn't
you're
think
going
so.
to table it, you have to table it, but if it's being pulled.
Yeah,
By the
it's
superintendent, we're okay.
Right, we're just pulling it off. So upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the personnel committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. P1A through P19.
Moved by Ms. McKenzie. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Scott Hayden. Mrs. Capiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
You need to discuss more, or
I just wanted to,
a question?
yes, just on P10, about adding that to that job description, because the job description was very, very vague, so I think that we should add those mentionables onto the job description. So I don't know, what do we do?
I believe Dr. Taylor said he would add it onto, he would revise it for August.
So are we voting on it, or what are
Are
we
we
doing?
voting?
I don't know.
I think, if I may, I
Go ahead.
think it would be helpful if we approve it tonight, and then I update it in August, so that we can at least make some headway in hiring for the position.
And to the extent the amendments are consistent with the recommended additions, then it will not have to be voted on again.
Oh.
So you're approving it subject to the recommendation of the board to add to the job description. If it is consistent, then you don't vote again. If it deviates substantially, they'll just represent to you the board.
So he would just forward us the revision, so at least we can see that it was,
Confirm that it's consistent
yeah.
with the proposed additions that were discussed.
I'm fine with that.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Capiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Benisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Heeden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Do we have something? We have, yeah. go ahead.
Upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the policy committee presents the following policies for the board's consideration first reading. Policy 5517, school district issued student identification cards. Policy 5560, disruptive students. And policy 5600, student discipline / conduct.
Moved by Ms. McKenzie. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Ms. Scott Hayden. Any discussion on the policies first reading? Yeah. Any
Yes,
questions or?
just a question. On policy 2, and maybe, Mr. Taylor, you can answer this question. In terms of, the policy uses the words like good relationships. I mean, who's defining good relationship? It uses some words in there that I think it's very subjective to interpretation by who is looking at this particular policy. So maybe you can just elaborate on how this policy will be used, because I see words like, again, good relationship. Who determines what good relationship is?
So I don't have the policy in front of me verbatim. Actually, Ms. Kuhn is pulling it up. But I would submit that policies, in some respects, are a guideline. Typically. The administration has the authority to develop regulations.
good relationship. And in terms of, I noticed,
Also, if I may, I'm sorry. Ms.
Sorry.
Wu just reminded me, this is just the first reading.
Yeah.
So if you have any specific good questions to pose. Thank you. Since this is a first reading, I would just suggest that we understand the word good. The committee can reconsider that with the administration. But if you have any specific additions or modifications, I would suggest you state them for the record so that they can be reviewed and perhaps incorporated into the policy. But again, some of them may be okay, subject to the administration creating regulations.
so I just want to state on the record that also the policy reference RTI, also which is more academics, and it does not mention MTSS, which will give that good relationship, that social emotional piece, the behavioral piece, and it will come together. So I suggest that the policy should not only refer to RTI, which is more academics, but refer to it as MTSS also. That's it.
Any other additions to any of the policies? Okay. All right, so we will do a second reading with the revisions to these policies for our August meeting. Okay?
I would just ask that whatever the revisions are, they get sent
Put
to the
them in.
policy chair.
Yeah, to send them to the policy chair. And that, excuse me, it's very warm in here. Residency Committee resolutions, Mrs. Manisi, please.
Upon recommendation of the,
Oh, we didn't vote.
Oh, we didn't vote, I'm sorry.
A motion.
Yeah, motion, second, please.
We have one.
Did we get a motion?
Scott Hayden.
Oh, first reading, we don't vote on.
I didn't think we,
You don't have to vote in the first reading.
No.
yeah, that's what I thought. All right, Mrs. Manisi, residency, please.
Okay.
Upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Residency Committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. Okay, R1, approve list of students removed from the rolls. For the 21-22 school year, 45 students were removed. R2 through R11 are students that will be removed at the end of the school year, this school year.
And then we've got R12. and
Oh, I'm sorry.
R13.
R12 and R13. So they were students that have been removed from the rolls.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Manisi. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Scott Hayden. There is no discussion. Mrs. Capiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott Hayden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. Dr. Francis, would you do the Technology Committee resolution?
Upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Technology Committee presents the following resolutions for the board's consideration. T1, approve list of devices for recycling in accordance with the information in the hands of each board member.
Okay, moved by Dr. Francis.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Manisi. No discussion. Mrs. Capiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby? Mrs. Scott Hayden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. Can someone make a motion to approve our bills, please?
Can I do it? Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, that the board concur with the bills listed in the permanent bonded register apprehended to these minutes and be ordered for payment.
Second.
Seconded by moved by Mr. O'Shea, seconded by Mrs. Manisi. Mrs. Capiello, roll call, please.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie? Mrs. Manisi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mrs. Regis Darby? Mrs. Scott Hayden?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. We move to unfinished business. Is there anyone that has any unfinished business? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to new business. Does anyone have new business? Mrs. Manisi, please.
Okay, so it's just one thing I've been thinking about for the last month or so. If everybody would like to consider moving our committee meetings back to Tuesday of our work session instead of Zooming on Monday night, it's just a thought. Coming in earlier before our work session and to have our committee meetings and then discuss before the meeting that night. I just feel that For me, I'm retired, so, but you guys are all busy all day long. So you're giving up 3 nights, and I know the committee nights for some people is very long, Ms. McKenzie. You work all day, and then you have meetings like 4 hours. So it's just a thought, so if people want to consider it for discussion next time, or whenever we're in executive session.
Okay.
Just my thought.
Any other new business?
Just a quickie, I want to give a shout out to Christina Lamb, who's the coordinator of our summer program at Connecticut Farms, and Maureen Guilfoyle, who's the director of Title I. Star Ledger featured the programs here in Union on the front page of the print copy. And then today, New Jersey Spotlight came to do a video piece, which you can find online. So if you go to the New Jersey Spotlight website and click Education, you'll see the U up front in a great light. So thank you for the summer program, people.
Thank you for that, Dr. Taylor. If there is no other new business from the board, Mrs. Regis Darby?
Just have a quick question. Is there a rationale for why summer assignment is mandated for our AP and honors students and not mandated for our general education students?
Summer programs?
Summer assignments.
Oh, summer assignments. Well, Dr. Perez, you want to share the work of the committee that you put together?
So this has been a topic that has been coming up lately, and as I had explained to Ms. Darby and to a couple of other parents, this was a committee decision. We did bring forth the perspectives of having mandatory assignments versus recommended assignments for the other classes. The committee took all of the perspectives into consideration. They reviewed what neighboring school districts were doing, in addition to the more rigorous, high-performing school districts. And what we were pushing forward was no different than what our neighboring school districts have been doing. However, we do understand the concern that the message could be sending to our other students by having them, if they're in general ed courses, having the option to complete the classes. But as I had said, the committee had done the research. We did present this concern that was brought forth as far as it being equitable, as far as it being fair. Are we holding the same standards and expectations for all students? And once they reviewed everything, they did understand that perspective, and we're going to be looking at what we can do for next year. However, for this year, this is what was put forth in motion based on the research that they've done from our neighboring school districts, as well as the rigor that comes with the AP courses and requiring our students to have a leg up per se on what is required or expected of them once they start the AP classes.
See, and I have issues with this, and I hope every person in the community have issues with this, because what that is saying to me is that we put a lot of efforts into our students who are AP and honors. And when you think about our general education students, and Dr. Taylor presented us with data from one of those assessments that they took, and we see that our general education students, they need to continue that work during the summertime, because we know how summer slide affects those particular students. And I think it's embarrassing to say that this district is saying that, oh, we care because we know that the AP and the honor students can handle the work, but our general education students, oh, they can't handle the work, so let's not give them work. I think when you talk about equity and you talk about, imagine you have a kid who is a general ed student and you're like, oh, you can't handle the work, so you know what, take the summer off. You know that message that you're sending to that child as a district? I think the district and anyone who sits here tonight should be embarrassed that that's the message that the district is sending to our students, and especially our students who are general education students. We should be embarrassed.
Thank you for those comments. Dr. Francis?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing about equity. I don't think that's really equity. And I think it may upset some parents. So I think they should revisit that and discuss that again. But it ultimately is your decision, Dr. Taylor. That's one thing I wanted to talk about. Are you going to speak to the Zoom? I don't know if you're going to speak to, are you going to wait? About getting rid of the Zoom. Huh?
This is our last Zoom meeting, or?
Yeah. I didn't know if you're going to let the public know.
Everybody out there, this will be our last Zoom meeting. So, put your hands up one last time, and then for August, we'll see you out in the audience.
I just wanted to point out and highlight the ESPs that were honored here this evening. As a former ESP for 26 years, I will be remiss if I did not say congratulations to each and every one of you. You are definitely essential in the educational process here in the Township of Union. I want you to know that you are the backbone. You absolutely do matter. And I hope that next year we have more ESPs to honor. And next year we'll make sure we do it a lot better with a little bit more swag. I wasn't part of the planning, but next year it'll be a lot better. So I just want to say congratulations to each and every one of you, and I look forward to seeing you return in September.
Thank you, Ms. Scott Hayden. Anyone else have any other new business? Okay. So with that being said, we are going to move to comments from the public. Again, I ask that the audience here, if you'd like to speak, just line up so I can see you, and then we'll alternate between whoever's on Zoom and whoever is here. And I'd ask that you stick to the 3-minute time limit and state your name and your address.
Good evening. Is all right?
Yeah.
James Frazier, 34 Mildred Terrace, Vauxhall. I am a 25-year school security officer here in Union High School, and I am the incoming county president of the of UTEA, NJEA, of the Education Association, and I would be remiss as a sitting ESP and as a county president that I did not come to this microphone and say congratulations to those who were honored this evening. Again, next year, hopefully, this board will be able to work with me, with the county, as well as the UTEA, so we can have a true representation of what our ESPs mean to us in this district. And on another note, Dr. Taylor, I appreciate you meeting with the Equity Committee that we've been having these several meetings. I just wanted to point out one thing, that on the presentation, we're talking about restorative justice, school-to-prison pipeline, and the whole connotation about strikes. It kind of nerved me a little bit, telling our students that you get the 3 strikes, for a black man in America, to hear the words 3 strikes, we know what that negative connotation of us going into the prison system. So I just think that we should be aware of the words that we're using when we're referring to our students. Thank you.
Is there someone with their hand up? You have it?
Good evening, Ann Margaret Shannon, 2591 Spruce Street, and the UTA president. I want to also congratulate all our ESPs of the year. I don't know if people know this, but the county has a teacher program of the year, but they do not have one for the ESP. And so I am proud that the UTA has taken it on ourselves to have our very own ESP program of the year. And I thank the Board of Education for acknowledging this program. Also, I'm very glad to hear the Goal 3 equity update. As Mr. Frazier just mentioned, recently the UTA and the NJA leadership has met with Dr. Taylor and Dr. Perez to discuss future initiatives, and I'm excited that UTA will be a partner in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Shannon. Anyone here? Okay. Is there anyone else from... Okay, so no one else from the public would like to speak?
Paul Casey, 135 Walton Avenue. If we're speaking about equity, and that is something that we need to demonstrate to our students, our teachers, our faculty, staff, it also needs to be available to our community. And to hear this evening that Zoom meetings are no longer going to be an option is not, living what we're preaching. There are parents that obviously can't make it here for one reason or another. Zoom meetings have created an opportunity for us to be more equitable over the last two to 3 years, and the decision to now remove that seems to be disengaging the community as opposed to further engaging the community. So if we want additional community representation and community involvement, I would strongly recommend that us not eliminate the Zoom meetings, because I think there's been an enhanced community involvement as a result of the Zoom meetings, because in the past, before Zoom meetings were a thing, you would see the same number of people that are in the room now at meetings and not have this option. So this increased involvement is a positive thing for our district and our children, so I would highly recommend that we revisit that decision and keep the Zoom meetings.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Mr. Casey. If there are no other members of the public that would like to speak, we need to go back into executive session. Moved by Mrs. Regis Darby, seconded by Mrs. Medici. Mrs. Capiello.
Quick question. Do we, Mr. Taylor, do we have to say why we're going back again? Do we have to?
Oh.
Information of personnel, strike that, attorney-client privilege, litigation update on pending litigation matters, and other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, action may be taken.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Capiello?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie? Yes. Mrs. Medici?
Yes.
Mr. O'Shea? Mrs. Regis Darby? Mrs. Scott Heeden? Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
To adjourn. Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. The people that need to record it aren't listening. Motion?
Yes.
Aye.
Let's go. Okay, we're done? What did you?